Today we're going to take a look at our business continuity solution. During the demonstration, we'll look at restoring an individual file, we'll talk about rebuilding the entire server, and we'll actually spin up a virtualization and explain how you'd be able to connect to your servers during an outage. The first thing to point out about the solution, it is appliance-based. It's on your network for the storage of your backups, and it's also there with some resources to handle a virtualization in case there's a disaster. Now, the interface we have up on the screen right now is exactly what would control that device. The device I have here has a couple servers being backed up. There's also a workstation. The bottom line for support, it's actually anything Windows 2000 and up, and that does include the workstations as we can see here. If I click a server, we have a quick list of options. First I can always start or stop the backup. Below that we have the recovery points. Now this page is listing every time and date we have performed a backup, but more importantly, this is where I'm going to handle a majority of those restore options. First, we'll keep it simple. We're going to look at restoring an individual file. Maybe a user deleted a file or we need to restore to a previous version. All we need to do is select a restore point and click on File Restore. In the background, we're mounting that backup and providing you access to it within a network share. You basically have two ways to get your data. First, you can pull it up right in the web browser. Click on the link, you'll have the drives you're protecting, followed by your directory. Otherwise, you can navigate here. Let's just pull up a file explorer and actually browse to the IP address of the backup device, and similar view. There's my drive, there's my directory. So you can extract it however you're comfortable. If you rather copy and paste or download right from the interface, it's your call. In case you're using Exchange or SharePoint, we actually have a tool to assist you guys for some granular restores. On the Exchange side, you can actually extract an entire mailbox or an individual email. Very similar in SharePoint, except we're targeting pages. Just keep that in mind. You do have a tool to assist in those databases. Once we're done with the restore, we just back up, unmount that restore point, performs a little bit of cleanup for us, and we're back to work. Next, we're going to talk about rebuilding the entire server. The big thing to let you know, it really doesn't matter what environment we're protecting, whether you're physical or virtual. We can back up both, and you can actually restore in either direction. Now, if you are in a virtual environment, you can actually extract any backup as a virtual machine. We provide you access to that VM as a VHD or VMDK, just really dependent on whatever you're using internally. There's also a really cool option here to extract a backup to a USB hard drive. Maybe you have a certain compliance and data needs to be stored for a certain amount of time, or you just want to capture financial data quarterly or yearly. You can throw that data right onto a USB hard drive right from the interface. This is targeted to mirror your file structure. So if your server has, let's just say, a CDE partition on it, we'd actually mirror that data onto the drive. In the future, there's your directory. So really quick file restore capabilities with that. That's our virtual. Next, we'll take a look at the physical. So here's our bare metal restore process. Really, the unique portion of our restore is if you come across dissimilar hardware. Maybe the server that failed was a legacy product or just outdated, and you just purchased a completely separate make and model. The unique portion is in the background. We're actually going to inject drivers for that new server. What's really happening is we're going to pull an inventory of that server, reference the hardware, contact our database of drivers, and automatically inject them in the restore for you. So the end result, you can take data from an older legacy server and transition that into the latest and greatest. The last option to show you on this page is what we call our screenshot verification. This actually tests out your backups for you daily. You just look at it as we're taking a backup, running it on our device for several minutes. There is a script on it ensuring we can boot successfully, and then we just screen capture. That way there's at least a visual. That's what the blue icon on the right hand side represents. So on a daily basis, you'll get an indication if you have a valid backup. The truth out there, a lot of image-based technology would require a conversion or consolidation. So it was a time-consuming process to get to this state. The truth is, you're not going to test it daily with those type of technologies, and the worst thing you ever want to run across is a failure and find out about a corrupt backup. With our technology, if we receive a blue screen or we receive a strange error, we can troubleshoot this. I can correct my backups or correct the servers prior to an outage. It's a little bit of peace of mind for you. I know I have a valid image, and I know I can virtualize today if there is an issue. Next, we're going to jump into the virtualization side of things. So let's see what an actual outage would look like. So almost painting the picture for you, let's just take a look as if a server just failed locally. Your first step, we're on the interface, determine which server had the outage, and we want to adjust your resources. So we determine how many CPU cores and how much RAM are we going to give this VM. These resources are coming off of the backup device itself, so the top left-hand corner gives you a little reference guide as to what's available. Next, we determine the networking. Now, your first option here is disconnected, so there's no networking connectivity. Above that's really neat, firewalled on a private subnet. You can view the network cannot view the VM since you're behind a firewall. This is a sandbox environment. If you ever have some testing you want to beat up, or maybe there's a service pack that you just want to make sure everything runs right before you actually bring it into production, that's your setting right there. And last, bridge to the primary NIC that's live on your network, that's your disaster mode. So from here, you can either select a specific backup or click on the latest one. What's actually happening in the background is we're taking that backup, mounting it on the device, and then it's actually going to provide us a link to download an RDP connection, and then we're just going to jump right into it. And again, the big thing here, there's no conversion or downtime. The files are actually natively stored as a virtual machine, so once there is an outage, you can have this up and running in minutes versus hours. So the VM's ready. It gives us a quick link to download an RDP connection. There's my download link, and my servers are already in the process of booting. The big advantage you're going to have here, we're already on the network, so users will continue working. The other big thing, so will our device. We'll actually continuously back this up. Once the server has been repaired or replaced, we would just go through the restore options we looked at earlier. So extract a VM or even go through that bare metal restore. Now the last piece is really how we target business continuity. If your entire site fails, server and the backup device are down, you can work with us. Now we can virtualize you offsite. We actually have 2 bicoastal data centers that we can utilize. There's one in Pennsylvania, there's one in Salt Lake City. Now during this outage, there's a large connectivity question because you may have users connecting at home, there might be a remote location, so we have to distribute a connection to all these users. The bottom line on our side, it's almost a question of what's the function of the server. Maybe it's Exchange or your mail server will reroute traffic to one of our public-facing IP addresses. Maybe you have a terminal server, will provide you RDP access, or on a larger scale, we can always run a VPN. We establish that connection, users can connect from home and have access to their applications and their network shares and just continue running. The big thing on our side, we're really minimizing downtime since we're natively storing backups as a virtual machine. It's really just getting it up and getting that connectivity established. Once you're done with the VM, it's really simple. You just stop and unmount it. The last thing to point out on my side is the offsite. One of the biggest fears out there with image-based backups is syncing all this data offsite. I mean, it's a ton of data, and if the bandwidth is an issue, it can be really time-consuming if we ever catch up. So initially what we're actually going to do is take all that data, load it onto a USB hard drive, and mail that over to us. So we'll take that large chunk of data and get that synced in my data center. On your end, We're just worrying about your newer daily data change, right? Your newer daily backups. So we're going to want to set a restriction. That way we're not taking all your bandwidth. We have two ways to do this. Right here on the bottom of the page, we have your speed limit. Now this is actually the largest amount of throughput you would ever allow us to sync. The reason we say that is above is when I want you to be strict. So get in here and target specific user hours. Just whatever's important for you as far as network throughput goes, and create a restriction. I just created a really simple window. I pulled up a Monday through Friday 9 to 5, but the way I look at it, during office hours, no one's complaining about a sluggish network, but overnight and on the weekends, we plan on catching up with all these changes and reflecting the master throttle on the bottom of the page. But that is a really quick run through. If there's any questions, please feel free to reach out to us.